an article before this, and I think it's like, according to Women and Girls of Color in Computing, like 7% of bachelor's degrees are held by Black women in computer science in particular. And so I'm like, that is a very small percentage. And so I don't, when you're going through the major and you don't see many people who look like you, because I have my friends, I think I wasn't thinking about it too much in terms of like, oh, I mean, I knew we were like, there were a handful of us doing computer science, but when you think on a national scale, you would think like, okay, maybe there are more of us, but yeah, 7% is a pretty small number.
That's crazy because that's smaller than the number of Black people that actually have a bachelor's degree.
That's
And that's
crazy.
ridiculous.
Like, the
That's
numbers,
really
it's
ridiculous.
like, and technology is where the money is, right? Like, technology is the future, and it's what is going to lead innovation. It's what has been leading innovation over the past 20 years. So it's definitely important for us to have a voice. We've seen places where Black people do not have a voice in technology and things go completely wrong, right? So it's super important for when we have the opportunity and when we're passionate about it, for us to have access to those, to this field, because it's super important for us to have a seat at the table.
Stars in the making, yeah, really, yeah, we made it. Yeah, we stars in the making, really, yeah, we made it. Stars in the making, really, yeah, we made it. Coming from the next lane. We gotta make it out, it's time to show up and show out. We got talent, started from the bottom, now we grinding, and we striving. Cause we stars in the making, stars in the making. Yeah, it's really, yeah, we made it. Yeah, we stars in the making. Ooh, stars, yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Aligning Stars. I'm here with Amara Gordon. Amara, want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Amara. I am a program manager at Microsoft. I attended Dartmouth College. I now live in Seattle, Washington. I'm interested in all things technology, dance, that kind of stuff.
Amara used to be a great dancer, yeah. Not used to. I don't know. She probably still is. I haven't seen her in a long
To
time.
be, oh man,
I haven't seen you in a
I've
long
lost it
time.
apparently.
I don't know. I ain't seen no dancing videos or anything. I don't know what you've been up to.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. I can't go to the studio. I can't perform on a stage. One day, I'll be back.
I believe it. As you know, it's Women's History Month, and
Yep.
I definitely want to dedicate it to all the Black women because I was raised by Black women. Um, Black women literally. I'm always one of the people that literally like kept me in college. So when I went to Dartmouth, so definitely want to make this like all about Black women. Um, Particularly this week, I want to talk about Black women in STEM, and I know in college you were a CS major.
Yep.
So like the first question is like, what made you get into STEM or coding?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was trying to figure out kind of what I would potentially major in college. And so my parents kind of found different STEM programs. So there were ones that I could do over the summer. So I did one at the University of Washington. And then another summer I did a program called Girls Who Code, which just happened to take place at Microsoft. And so those were kind of my introductions to computer science. So I knew when I went to college, wherever I was going to go, I'm like, I'm going to at least try CS now that I know that it's something that I'm potentially interested in. So that's kind of where I got the interest in technology.
I was not great at coding at all, as you know.
Coding it just takes a lot of time, and it takes your brain getting into a certain mental state in order to problem solve in a particular way. So I think that the earlier people are introduced to it, the better. Like my high school didn't have any computer science classes, no AP computer science, nothing. So that's why like my parents had to look for other programs. But now I think more schools are kind of getting computer science, and even like elementary school kids are learning about it. So I'm like, oh, you guys are ahead of us. Definitely.
There's a lot of elementary school. I think my siblings are talking about coding. I'm like, yo, you're like 5, 6. We talking about coding.
You're like, what are you gonna build?
Yeah. I'm like, hey, they might be. Hey, I know they're gonna be better than me, cause
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and CS1 was such a struggle. Oh my gosh.
It always is. Yeah, that was definitely a tough class. If you can power through, it gets better. But it's hard when you're in that when you're in the moment, you're just like, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's definitely how it felt for me. And with black women in STEM, there's a lot of like stereotypes and just not a lot of black women in STEM in general.
Yep.
Um, so and I heard different stories, especially at Dartmouth, about like the black women in the math classes or the science classes. So I
Mhm.
want to hear like what microaggressions did you face in any of those STEM classes?
Yeah, so I think I was pretty lucky, as you know, like I kind of got to go through the major with two other Black women who are some of my best friends. And so in those classes, I had a little bit of kind of like a support system that I think was super helpful. Of course, there's the classic, right? Like guys take up a lot of space in the conversations in the class. There's the know-it-alls who went and have been coding since they were 10 or 11 and are raising their hands for every question. And you're sitting here like, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm just like, it just feels like you're behind. And so luckily I didn't feel any direct kind of feeling that I was inferior or something coming from like professors or from other classmates. But I think that a lot of it is just when you don't see other people in your classes that look like you're like, am I supposed to be here? Is this the right thing for me? Do I even know what it looks like to be successful in these things? So yeah, I think luckily I didn't have to experience too much direct stuff, but it was more of like, well, I don't really have even a mental model for what this might look like. And that's what I think a lot of people do experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's just tough because like black women are the most disrespected people ever in the world.
Say
Not
that
even
again.
just America. So
Yep.
it's just like I can only imagine like being in those classes and having like men and white men take up more and more space.
Yep, it happens seemingly everywhere, which is unfortunate. But that's why I think it is super important for us to have community and the women, Black women in particular, who are kind of in STEM and in computer science. We have to find community there because I mean, we are smart and we do know what we're doing. And as long as we're given the opportunity and the chance, right, like we're going to excel at what we do. So I think that that's the shining light in all of this, and the silver lining is just like when we do find each other and we find that community, it really does feel super supportive and is a way to help us get through those experiences that are not so favorable.
No, definitely. And then you talked about it a little bit, but if you want to go in more detail, like what ways did your like girl group help? It was a lot of them, y'all, but two of them were in the yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say there's really nothing like having other Black women in my CS classes. Like that was a game changer for me. And they just so happened to become some of my best friends. And, you know, we would study together, we'd prep for exams, anything that had to do with technology, we'd have conversations about it. And then, you know, not only having peers who were in the classes with me, but also having those mentors and people who I could look up to. You know, as we spoke about before, it's being able to see people who are further than you, being able to see people who've achieved what you hope to achieve, who look like you. And so I definitely was lucky to have Black women mentors in computer science. As you said, they're like not many. They're really not many. It's not like I had 10 to choose from, but I was lucky that they were amazing people and were willing to help and reach out because I think they knew kind of what that need looks like, and maybe they didn't have that representation when they were going through the major, and so they were super willing to talk about, you know, what professors should we be looking at, which courses should we take. If you just want to ask them, you know, how did you get through this problem set, or how did you find success in these classes. So it was really nice to have like a sounding board and to see someone, you're like, okay, I can't do this because they're on their way, they're doing it too. So, but we are far and few between, the Black women in computer science. I was reading an article before this, and I think it's like, according to the Women and Girls of Color in Computing, like 7% of bachelor's degrees are held by Black women. in computer science in particular. And so I'm like, that is a very small percentage. And so I don't, when you're going through the major and you don't see many people who look like you, because I had my friends, I think I wasn't thinking about it too much in terms of like, oh, I mean, I knew we were like, just there were a handful of us doing computer science, but when you think on a national scale, you would think like, okay, maybe there are more of us, but yeah, 7% is a pretty small number.
That's crazy because that's more than the number of Black people that actually have a bachelor's degree.
That's
And that's
crazy.
ridiculous.
Like, the
That's
numbers,
really
it's
ridiculous.
like, and technology is where the money is, right? Like technology is the future, and it's what is going to lead innovation. It's what has been leading innovation over the past 20 years. So it's definitely important for us to have a voice. We've seen places where Black people do not have a voice in technology and things go completely wrong, right? So it's super important for when we have the opportunity and when we're passionate about it for us to have access to those, to this field, because it's super important for us to have a seat at the table.
No, that's very true. I was like, what was like your favorite project in college that you did with CS?
My favorite project in college that I did, I think it was in oh gosh, what is that class called? Why does college feel long ago? It was intro to something in one of my CS classes. Actually, I'll talk about this one. So in CS1, I was taking the class with my friend, and there was an assignment called chalkboard. And so you got to like make a chalkboard, and you got to pick the different colors of the chalk and use different keys and tie them to whatever you're going to draw, all those things. And I just remember being in that class and being in office hours waiting outside to talk to either a TA or a professor. And our professor came out, and we had just finished the assignment, and we were just so excited because we had finished way before the deadline, which rarely happens. Usually it's 11:59. And so he just came out and he was like, you two are really just smiling and super excited about this. And so it was just, I think it was less about the assignment itself and more just about feeling like you could accomplish something and reach the end, and you're like, okay, yeah, I feel like I can now tackle things and know that I can get to the end and actually achieve the goal of the assignment or whatever the project was. So I think that was pretty early on in my college experience, but one of those times where you're like, okay, maybe I can continue. Maybe I can continue on in the major, because there are lots of times when you're just like, oh, no, I don't know about this one. Lots of tears were shed. It was just like, yeah, some things are pretty difficult. So when you find those moments when you're good, you're like, yes, appreciate those.
You saw the light.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, there it is, a little glimmer.
No, that's amazing. And one thing you mentioned, we talked about was like voice. Like we need to have more voice in the technology world. And you're at Microsoft. Like that's a
Yeah.
big company. Everybody uses Microsoft for Excel, PowerPoint slides,
Yeah.
Word. Like everybody's using like Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're doing the program management. So I would assume that you have like one of the biggest voice there when it comes to some of the programs. How did that come about?
Yeah, so during my first term at Dartmouth, there was a Microsoft event being held. And so I'm pretty sure I was walking by the library actually, and I ran into someone in the class of 2018, and he was like, I interned at Microsoft, the summer before. You two should totally apply. You should go to this event, yada, yada, yada. One of the big pulls of events in college is free food. They also had pizza, which I think was one of the main factors of like going to this. So we went, and, I got to connect with a recruiter and hear about kind of like what were the opportunities there for internships. And so I applied. And of course, I'm not expecting to get any interview. I'm like 5 or 6 weeks into my first formal CS class. This is my first year in school. Like, there's no way. But I got an interview. And so, yeah, I got that interview, completed that, got the offer for the Explore internship, which is 2/3 software engineering, 1/3 program management. And it's targeted specifically for first years and second years in college. And then after that, I got a return offer to come back as a software engineering intern. And then I decided I wanted to try something different before I went full-time. So I interviewed and switched roles and did program management for my last internship, and then got a return offer from there to be full-time. So that's kind of how I landed in program management. Program management is a pretty ambiguous field. Whenever somebody asks, like, what is program management? Everyone has a different answer. No one knows what the heck it is. Like, I mean, I like to think of it as we're the people who bring together, like, designers, the software engineers, user research, data. We're the person who, like, brings the story together and works with all those different functions and roles in order to get features from just a little tiny thought all the way to production. So it's a fun job. You never do the same thing every day. You're always learning something new, and that's what I enjoy about it. And of course, working at Microsoft, the company has a huge impact, as you said. Like, I was, using Word, Excel, PowerPoint from, I can't even remember how long. It's been. I don't remember the first time I opened those. That was probably elementary school when we were in the computer lab. And so it's amazing to be able to work on something that so many people use, and to know that it's actually helping people is great.
Yeah, I always felt like program management, it's like a planner or something. Like, I don't know. Every time I see a program manager, I'm like, that's that person that like
Yeah.
gets everybody to come together, put all their ideas and make magic. Um,
Yes. We do spend a lot of time looking at calendars and trying to find free slots in other people's calendars. I think it's a big majority of my job. I'm like, gosh, I really am just looking and trying to find a free slot. And now that we're working virtually, there's so many meetings that you can't even get people's calendars straight. So yes, that is a main part of our job. That's correct.
um, oh, and then one of the other questions I did have for you as well was, you were president of NAACP, you were president of can't remember, was it Dartmouth College of
Dartmouth Women in Computer Science.
Dartmouth Women in Computer Science,
Mhm.
and those are all great programs, like
Yeah.
especially in school. What other programs do you see yourself like if you could create your own program maybe, or program that you're like really want to work on that you already have in your mind? What program would you like to create for like specifically Black women?
Yeah, I give a big shout out to my co-presidents, my co-president for NAACP and Women in Computer Science, also Black women who are doing amazing things, did amazing things on campus, are doing amazing things now. So I think that there are some organizations who kind of are doing this work, right? Like Black Girls Code, you may have heard of. Their mission is I wrote it down actually. Their mission is to introduce programming and technology to a new generation of coders who will become builders of technological innovation and of their own futures. I really like that mission because it makes it sound like, the people who they're bringing up will have agency over just what they want their life to look like, and technology is a really good way to do that. If I was able to make my own thing, I think that a big part of why technology seems so daunting and so frightening is just not having a knowledge, like not having a basic knowledge of how these things work, and also not having access to the way you would learn those things, and so when when I was in high school, I was in a STEM club that was after school at a different school. Like, my school didn't have it, so I would drive to another school, and so it would really break down that barrier to access if my school just had a club. Like, tried to start one, that didn't work out. So I feel like it's one of those things where we need more people who are willing to teach and mentor and be, the people who help from K through 12 all the way through college, because you do need those guiding people to teach you. So I think I would make something that just has like a good balance of a social aspect and the technical, because I really do think the building of community and knowing other people kind of outside of the technical aspect is really important and useful, because you can get so focused on, okay, this is what they know about computer science, this is what they do about research, data, all these things, but you don't get to know the person. So I think it's really great to create like the interpersonal relationships there too, because you may have a question about just life in general, and you need people to ask about that, or a career change, or a move across the country, like those kinds of things. So I just think those, and then one more thing I would add is just something that uplifts Black women, something that makes us feel good. There's so many things out there that don't make us feel good. So a space where we feel celebrated, a space where we feel like we are just shown other examples of greatness, because we've been doing great things. We will continue to do great things, and just create an environment where that is accepted and celebrated. Yeah, I think that's what I would make.
All right, dope. And wait, and you said you had to go to different schools. That was in high school?
Yeah, that was in high school.
That's actually ridiculous. I feel like that's
Yes.
probably the best time to get, like, if a kid wants to start a club, like, to let them, like, I know a lot of schools don't have money. Maybe that was could have been an issue. I know that's always a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, it's a problem. Like, I remember when I tried to start I tried to start a math engineering science academy chapter at my school, and then also a girls who code, and it was like they couldn't find advisors or people who would know anything about that in the area. So I think that it's it's difficult because, you know, we all have, I mean, I have many passions. I'm like, there's so many things I would want to do, right? Like, I'm passionate about education. I would want to go back and be able to do those types of things, but um you know, we can't be everywhere at once. We can't make 10 of us, unfortunately. So I think it's just about getting, well, I will say, actually, one of the good things about now kind of this virtual environment is it is way easier to connect, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm 50 miles away from them, we can just have a meeting and we can talk about these things. So maybe that will bring about a change. Who knows? That might be a silver lining in all of this.
Yeah, true. I hope so. I really, really do. Cause yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. That's one thing I always talked about. I was like, dang, it would be
Mhm.
great to go to education, but when I don't see myself being a teacher. I don't know. Me and kids, man, we
I
especially
think
you
you'd be
know,
great.
think so? I don't know. I feel like me and a kid would be the same height. You know, they feel like they could talk to me a certain way. I don't know. That's probably my biggest fear. I'm like, yo, you know, kids think, you know, they can look you in the eye. It's on like, yeah, what up?
No, no, no. You got to get the little elementary school ones. Just get the kindergartners and the first graders, and there's no way they're matching your height. Not a chance.
But then they cry too much for me. I'd be like, oh my god, I can't do this. Like,
Oh boy. Okay. We'll go second and third grade, you know, that point when they're just right.
I did work with middle schoolers, and I thought they were hilarious. I think middle school would be the perfect age. Middle schools
Okay.
are kind
So
of funny.
see, you already know what you want to teach. There you go. Boom.
Yeah, but I can't teach for a grade. That'd be my other problem. I can't teach you for no state test. That's not gonna happen.
I mean, hey, I think you do what you had to do if you were in the situation. Say, this is the curriculum.
And this is how I talk to in college, y'all. I'm telling you right now. You can do anything you want to do. I'm like, nah, Mar, I don't know about this one.
Yes, you can. That is exactly how things were. Oh my gosh, literally. We're just having deja vu at this moment.
Yeah.
Hey, you can do it. You can do anything.
That is one thing I do want to do, though. Not teaching, but I do want to go back and create programs for the school. I would
Mhm.
teach the programs. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm doing that, but
I was
that
gonna
would be one
say
thing.
you have more freedom doing like an after school thing, or just yeah, being able to teach the things that are not in the state curriculum, because there's lots of stuff that's left out and that would be super useful, and I'm sure you'd be great at that.
Yeah, you would too. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully.
Sounds like we're gonna team up here, James.
We'll talk offline.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
And then one of my last questions for you too is just what's something you would tell other like young black women thinking about going into STEM, um, especially you dealing with your own microaggressions and you know people trying to take over your space and your bubble.
Yeah, I would say definitely you're not alone, even though it is, you know, that 7% of Black women with bachelor's degrees in computer science. There are many people, you know, there are many paths in technology, right? Like, not everyone has to go through college in order to get into computer science, which is one of the beautiful things about it, right? There are boot camps, there are different programs that help people transition from a different industry to get into technology. So I think that um, we're out there and we just have to find each other. And if you are a Black woman in technology, you're smart enough, you're powerful enough, your voice really does matter. It is one of the most essential things to building features, building businesses. And it is our unique experience that makes these things thrive, right? We drive the culture, um, we drive where the money goes, we drive lots of things. And so just know that your voice is important. And even if you're nervous, go for it anyway. Why not? Why not try? Because the worst someone can say is no, and there are 10 other doors that are open for you. And there are a lot of people out there to support you, more than you probably think. So if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm here too. So we're here.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Amara. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
This is
Thanks
all
for
about
having me.
representation. So I hope this other 7% see you and reach out to you.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Thanks, James.
All right, yeah. Thank y'all for tuning in to Salon and Stars.
Stars in the making, yeah, really, yeah, we made it. Yeah, we stars in the making, really, yeah, we made it. Stars in the making, really, yeah, we made it. Coming from the next land.